Welcome to Culture Night in Skibbereen. My name is David Butler and I'll be your guide this evening to the Masonic Hall, the home of Lodge number 15, also known as the 15th Lodge of Ireland here in Skibbereen. Let's go inside and have a look at some of the treasures within. Follow me. We've now come upstairs within the Masonic Hall to the first room. It's called the Anteroom. This is a sort of waiting room, cloakroom, museum and display space prior to entering the main room, the Lodge room. Let me tell you first of all a little bit about Freemasonry in West Cork and in Skibbereen. Freemasonry is a very ancient organisation. It's the world's oldest secular fraternity. It is non-political and non-religious. It's open to men who believe in a supreme being, that somebody made the world sometime, be he Yahweh or Jehovah, God, whatever he is called. And everybody who is of good moral worth, of good standing, who wishes to improve their education, their understanding of the past, to help the less well off and to assist in local charitable fundraising is most welcome to apply to join. It's linked to the ancient guild known as the stonemasons. Back in medieval times, stonemasons were very highly regarded and could travel from town to town, from urban incorporated area to urban incorporated area, and that is how they were known as Freemasons, free to travel. And here in the lodge in Skibbereen, you will see various tools and symbols around the room. These are used to instruct members, to educate members on the traditions of the past, and to use these tools, metaphorically, on their morals, their education, and how they deal with others in business and in general life. Freemasonry, in short, is about making good men better. It's about striving for those who already have significant moral worth to look after the less well-off in society and indeed to look after their own families and, in short, to treat others as they would like to be treated themselves. We're now at the entrance to the lodge room. Let's see what's inside. You're very welcome to the lodge room, which is the centrepiece of the Masonic Hall in Skibbereen. I'm going to hand you over now to Dermot, who is going to introduce these two wonderful oil and canvas gilded portraits.
This portrait is of Worshipful Brother Dr. David Haddon by Seamus Brennan, RHA. It must have been painted posthumously from a photograph because it was commissioned by the Brethren of the Lodge after he died aged 60 on the 17th of February 1878. He is buried in Abbeymound Graveyard, Skibbereen. He joined Lodge 15 in 1847 by affiliation from Lodge 27, which at that time used to meet at Drishan, which was the Somerville's house in Castle Townsend. He was master of this lodge in 1860, and he served as treasurer from 1863 until he died. The painting of our late Brother Haddon was unveiled in 1878 by Brother Robinson, who addressed the lodge, and it had been resolved that this address should be printed and placed on the wall beside the painting. Unfortunately, if this address had ever been printed, it has been lost. David Haddon became a doctor, having been apprenticed to his brother John. His practice was in the Main Street, Skibbereen, and he, along with Daniel O'Donovan, tended tirelessly and compassionately to the misfortunate victims of the Great Famine on Gorta Moor, which afflicted the town and district. He caught famine fever himself, but fortunately recovered. But it must have had a detrimental effect on his health, as he died at the relatively early age of 60 after an illness of a couple of months. During the famine, he was in charge of a dispensary in Castle Townsend. His district included Tow Head and many other very poor areas. People are often found on the roadside dying of starvation. In the Abbey graveyard near Skibbereen, trenches were dug where people were buried in large numbers, having been brought in cartloads without coffins. His son, Dr. William Haddon, of Portadown, recalls, "My father never cared to speak of his experiences during the famine. At any time he did so, tears came into his eyes." This is a portrait of James Hutchinson Swanson, painted by Seamus Brennan, ARHA, in 1864. For nearly 100 years, this painting was displayed in the lodge without anybody being able to remember who the sitter was. However, a large minute of the 6th of September 1912 was discovered by the secretary, which stated that a valuable oil painting had been bequeathed to the lodge by the estate of the late Mrs. Swanson, and this established his identity. James Hutchinson Swanson was born in 1815 in Ballydehob and became deeply committed to the Methodist Church and rose to a high position in that society. He was a successful businessman in Skibbereen, known locally as the Governor. He was involved in milling, shipping, and was appointed a Justice of the Peace and was one of the most influential people in Skibbereen. In 1868, James Swanson purchased this building from the Methodist Society for £325 sterling, but later sold it to the trustees of this lodge in September 1869 for just £250 sterling. He moved with his family in 1870 to Dublin and joined a Freemasons' lodge there.
When the visitor walks into any lodge room, perhaps the first focal point is this pedestal, wooden pedestal in the center of the room, and people will often want to know what is its purpose, and particularly the chessboard type pavement or mat or rug directly in front of all of these pedestals. The book that is on top of the pedestal is referred to as the volume of the Sacred Laws. It is a copy of the Old and New Testament of the Bible, and that is to emphasize that faith governs our actions. It is open to all persons, and anybody who is not of a Christian or Jewish background, then their book is displayed also. And the tessellated pavement, to give the official name to the chessboard effect, is to symbolize that at the heart of all of society there is the good and the not so good, the initiated and the uninitiated, the refined and the unrefined. Behind me, under the dais, is the chair of the Worshipful Master, and this is surmounted by a square and compass. You can see it on the chair, and indeed above the chair, the lovely orange light shining through. This is the symbol of the Freemason, the square, which is at a 90-degree angle, and the compass. These are the universally recognized symbols of Freemasonry. On either side of the Worshipful Master's chair, you can see there is a pair of beautiful columns which are surmounted by globes, and in front of the chair is the license or warrant framed at the ground level, and that is perhaps the most important symbol of any lodge. It is the license that is held from the governing body of the Grand Lodge of Ireland, and this particular document dates right back to the origins of the 15th Lodge of Ireland. In each corner there is a column, and that is symbolic of the ancient King Solomon's temple in the Holy Land or in Jerusalem. And many of the symbols of the walls and of the ceiling and indeed of the furniture are taken from the Old Testament, using the analogies and the historical symbolism of the ancient past in order to better inform the present and to assist us in the future. The room in which we're standing, the Lodge Room Skibbereen, is perhaps one of the most symbol-filled rooms and most embellished, artistically beautiful rooms in Ireland. The walls are heavily stencilled. They are filled with scenes, biblical scenes, historical scenes, artisan scenes, and there are many hand-carved items of furniture throughout the room, some of them several hundred years old, all of them associated with West Cork. Lodge 15, this lodge, the 15th Lodge of Ireland as it's also called, has met in Cork City, in Rosscarbery and in Skibbereen, all within the terms of the same paperwork. In 2006, in the month of April, a fire took place in the adjacent Methodist Church restaurant, former Methodist church now called the Church Restaurant. And the fire affected this building to the extent that the greater majority of the roof was damaged. And the interior was declared derelict and in need of full refurbishment. The end result is that all of the pieces of furniture that you see, all of the objets d'art and objects had to be completely cleaned down and refurbished. And that occurred throughout the second half of 2006 and most of the year 2007. And the result of those refurbishment works are the meeting facilities that you are viewing here this evening. I hope you've enjoyed this tour to the Masonic Hall Skibbereen, and be mindful that further information is available on the Provincial Grand website www.munsterfreemason.com by scrolling to the Skibbereen page, and indeed to the historical sections where you can find out about the lodges that previously met in Skibbereen and in West Cork.